coverage with Karen Webb. It is a gorgeous afternoon here, just the kind of afternoon that organizers of Royal Tour 86 were hoping for. Charles and Diana, the Prince and Princess of Wales, are about to step off their Boeing 707 aircraft from London out of the Victoria Airport. In just a couple of moments, we'll go there live for pictures of that scene. Always excitement over any Royal Tour, but especially on this one because it's the launching pad really for Expo 86. Karen?
For British Columbians, Peter, this is really the start of the Expo season. 3 years ago, on another royal visit, the Queen invited the world to come to Expo, and ever since then, the province of British Columbia has been hoping they'd have another royal visit to actually kick off Expo. And they got who they wanted. They got the Prince and Princess of Wales.
All right, well, let's go to those pictures at the Victoria Airport as the Royal 707 has arrived. This is part of the welcoming party for very much a very administrative welcome out at the airport. As you see, the door on the aircraft has been opened. We're just moments away from catching our first glimpse of the royal couple. These are many of the aides for the royal party getting off the aircraft now. But right on time, after a long 10-hour or so flight from London, the royal party about to arrive. The airport, the Victoria Airport, for those of you who have been out here, is a good 35-40 minutes away from downtown Victoria. The welcome at this end is going to be very simple, very short, and then they'll take the drive into Victoria for what is really the official welcome here at the provincial legislative grounds.
That's the Canadian Armed Forces plane, Peter. It's the duty of the host country, in this case Canada, to actually go to England to pick up the royal family whenever it's an official royal visit.
And there's our first glimpse of the royal couple, Prince Charles, getting ready now to come off the aircraft.
There he is.
And we'll see in a moment Diana, the Princess of Wales.
It's really Diana that people have been waiting to see, and there she is.
Beautiful blue outfit.
It's a very windy day out at the airport. It's good weather here in Victoria. It's sunny, but it's been raining for days, and it's still very windy, and it's quite cool, so they probably aren't getting the weather that they were hoping for.
The royal couple being met by the federal and provincial coordinators for the royal visit. Bill Clark, former federal MP there on the left of your picture. And now we'll introduce the royal couple to other members of the welcoming party at the airport, members of the airport staff and others who will welcome the royal couple there. A very brief ceremony. It will last only a few minutes before they depart the Victoria Airport and begin the drive down here to the really the official welcoming ceremonies. We should point out at this point, too, that a few changes have had to be made in the welcoming situation because of the illness of Governor General Jean Sauvé. The Governor General was, of course, expected to be here, but she has taken ill in the past few days and will not be here. And therefore, the welcoming ceremonies have changed a little bit, but...
They were to have been met at the airport by Benoit Bouchard, the federal cabinet minister. He's now going to be in the official ceremony here at the legislature. The provincial representative there is the Minister of Finance, Hugh Curtis. Exactly what is it that's wrong with the Governor General?
Well, the reports from Ottawa have indicated that Madame Sauvé is suffering from pleurisy, and that has unfortunately canceled her part in this whole royal visit out here on the West Coast.
She won't be at Expo either, will she?
No, at the moment she's not due to be at Expo either. But they're lucky with the weather here today. It's been cool and still cool here, but wet and windy for the past few days. But today the skies open up a little bit, and we've got some beautiful BC sunshine, and we're always bragging about out here.
But we've got prairie wind. Somebody must have brought it in just for the occasion.
The royal couple getting ready to get into the limousine for the drive. Once again, we said it's about a 30-35 minute drive from the airport to the provincial legislative grounds.
I'm told that by the party that went out to the airport that there is a crowd of people, a small crowd who have been lining the route to get a chance to wave at them as they go by. I don't think they're going to see very much with the windows of that car. No, there's the window going down a little bit.
An opportunity to wave to the people who were able to get out to the airport, but it has been a very private, very administrative, as they say, welcome at the Victoria International Airport. The big welcome will be down here at the legislative grounds. So as the Royal Motorcade gets ready for its departure from that area.
I think one of them has just discovered that they have electric windows on that car.
Almost 3 years since the last visit by the royal couple to our country. 1983, the Maritimes, Ottawa, and Alberta.
Very proud of this particular royal visit because it's the only one that's happened so far that's been entirely within one province. Usually, for instance, the last royal visit of the Queen, she started in New Brunswick, continued to Ontario, and then on to Manitoba. This one is entirely within British Columbia for the entire 7 days.
Now, I know a lot of viewers are probably thinking at this moment, now, aren't there a couple of other people in that family? Where are they? Well, Prince William and Prince Harry are not on this trip. They do not normally travel with the royal couple when they go overseas. The princess has said in the past that she likes for them to have a stable life in the early years, so they're not on this trip, as they haven't been on many of the others the royal couple have taken, which I'm sure is unfortunate for many Canadians who are anxiously awaiting their first look at the two princesses. Now we have moved from the airport. These are live pictures from outside the legislative grounds in Victoria, outside the provincial legislative buildings. Now, the welcoming ceremony, the official one, as you can see, the Guard of Honor lined up, and various dignitaries will be here for this welcoming, as well as the general public. A good, well, we're estimating in the neighborhood of 4,000 to 5,000 people here at least already, waiting for the royal couple, but that is, as we said, about 35 or 40 minutes away from this point. This is the one part today where the general public really get the opportunity not only to see the royal couple, but to hear Prince Charles, who will speak here, and if they're really lucky, get an opportunity to have a good close-up look at the royal couple when they take a short walkabout. Out at the airport, watching that brief, very brief ceremony just a few minutes ago is our Allison Smith. Allison?
Peter, the royal couple seemed relaxed and quite happy to be on the ground after their long flight. This was a quick and informal welcome, not an official one. It's what they call an administrative welcome, with local MPs and people like the airport manager here to greet them. Members of the public were not on the tarmac either. Part of the reason for that is security, but of course, it's also because the real official welcome is yet to come. Peter?
All right, Allison, thank you very much. A brief ceremony there, but of course a much more extensive one here when the royal couple arrives.
People here at the legislature have been here, some of them since about 10 o'clock this morning. Victoria is the city in Canada which has the highest percentage of people who claim they have British roots. It also is the city which has a fair number of people who are elderly and a lot of young people who are probably out to see Diana. There's a good crowd here. It's cold, and that's why I think some people may have stayed away, because it really isn't the kind of place you want to sit for 3 or 4 hours. They have been handing out flags. There are Canadian flags and there are British flags. And so far, people seem to have been very patient. Oh, there's one woman who's really got a collection of flags.
All right, and that's the British Columbia flag, of course, in the middle as well. But the mixture of flags, and I think you hit on the key part, too. The mixture in this crowd is not only the ones who have a strong attachment through connections back to Britain and to the monarchy, but also, I think, there's clearly the superstar quality of Diana, the Princess of Wales. So many people wanting to catch a glimpse of her.
There is a walkabout scheduled for the end of the official ceremony, and it will be down the west side of the legislature. The people have been lining up there since 10 o'clock, and they're now about, oh, I would say 20 deep, hoping to get a glimpse, I think, of the Princess of Wales. She has become one of the most popular members of the royal family ever since her engagement was announced to Prince Charles, and she has done a great deal to revive interest in the monarchy among younger people. People who don't remember the former king and queen.
This is the area, you mentioned the walkabout, Karen. This is the area that the prince and princess will do their walkabout, which is usually the one opportunity that us ordinary people get an opportunity to get up close, maybe have a few words with the royal couple, and get those nice close-up pictures that so many people take with their cameras.
She is said to have a particular interest in children. I noticed that there are a great number of children who've sort of tried to get in between the people right into the front. There's a little girl who's waving her flag. And it is a good chance that at least one or two of them will stop and have a personal conversation with, if not the princess, both the prince and the princess of Wales.
And as we said, this is the one glimpse of the royal couple today that the general public will get. There will be a reception a little later on today at the Lieutenant Governor's house, the British Columbia Lieutenant Governor's official residence. This is the podium where the royal couple will stand to take the royal salute. Of course, the playing of God Save the Queen and O Canada. The Prince Charles will inspect the Guard of Honor. This is the Guard of Honor. They are getting ready now for that but that is a good half an hour away from now as the royal couple are driving into Victoria. And obviously, we don't have the facilities to give you broadcast pictures, live pictures of that route in, but it is a very quick drive that is being taken from the Victoria International Airport downtown here to the provincial legislative grounds. So in that half hour, we have the opportunity today to show you something I know a lot of you enjoyed when you first saw it last fall. It was the first interview that was given by the Prince and Princess since they were married, and it was done by the ITN network in Britain. Now, there are a couple of things I want you to know about this before we replay this interview. It's a fascinating interview with Charles and Diana, an opportunity really in an informal way to see how they feel about any number of things, touring, their children, and life in general, and their duties. But one thing you must remember about this interview, there are parts of it which will seem very dated to you. It was conducted just before Charles and Diana went to the United States last fall. Now, our arrangement with the British network ITN is that we must play the whole interview and not just parts of it. So at times you will hear the interviewer, Alistair Burnett, asking questions about the upcoming visit to the United States. So I warn you of that now. Obviously, this is a couple of months old, but we must run the whole interview. Don't be concerned about missing the live pictures of Charles and Diana. They are on their way here from the airport, and they're a good half hour away. The interview runs 26 minutes. We hope you enjoy it. Here it is now.
Yes, 4 hands, 2 princes, and a piano. It's a photo session at Kensington Palace with the Prince and Princess of Wales and family.
Of course you can.
They think they're doing fine for the photographer, Tim Graham, but let's get ready for a better shot.
If you do that again,
What do you say?
one more kiss. One more kiss, please. Steady. Go. Hurry.
From father, a young pianist needs a cue on where to look. In the drawing room at Kensington Palace, the Prince and Princess of Wales talk together about their life and work, their causes and interests and bugbears, and their family. It's quite a family time. Prince William's just off to school. Your Royal Highnesses, everybody thought Prince William did terribly well when he set off to school, and you said to him, wave everyone goodbye, and then he just went away. Were you a little sad at that moment?
Well, I was, because it's opening another chapter in my life, and certainly William's. But he's ready for it. He's a very independent child. He's surrounded by a tremendous amount of grown-ups, so his conversation's very forthright. And as you saw, he's more than happy to go down those steps and join the other children. We do see a lot of children. There's always this myth that William, being who he is, hardly ever sees a child. But I have 2 sisters that have 5 children between them. And I have lots of friends who have children as well, so we get around.
And he really does enjoy it. I mean, what did he say to you that first day when he came home?
Well, he was just so excited by it all, and there was a tremendous spurt of conversation. If you could understand that, you could understand anything. Just trying to get it all out. But he just adores other children, and very much an organiser, which probably might be helpful in future years.
The world sees your partnership, the Prince and Princess of Wales, as a unique job. But what do you think the nature of your job really is?
Well, the difficulty is, of course, that I dare say other people may think differently from what we do. But I think the first, most important thing, really, is that it's not so much a job as a way of life. I think this is the essential feature of the whole thing. And I mean, I frequently read things saying, why doesn't he get a proper job, or something like that. And I honestly, personally believe that the whole way of one's life is part of the job. And one of the important things, I think, is that it is more than anything else the fact that one is trying to be ambassadors, I hope both of us, for this country. And the way I think we live our lives, in a sense, is also the role. But again, I don't think I can say too often that the particular position that I found myself in, and my wife, there is no actual laid down job or role. And you have to a certain extent, do as you think right and fit. It'd be quite easy to do nothing, in fact. So it's really just the way you feel that things should be done. And above all else, I think the important thing is to serve this country and its people and the Commonwealth.
But I do notice that one of your increasing interests seems to be jobs for young people and getting young people a start in a business life.
Very much so, yes. I've been very much involved in this, really, I think, since those rather dreadful rats in Toxteth and elsewhere in 1981, which was the year we were getting married. And I thought rather seriously about things then, and got together some of the people in my trusts, and we worked out a scheme, because I felt very strongly that we ought to try and find a way of enabling young people in rather deprived parts of the country, in inner city areas and so on, to actually start their own enterprises, because I believe that there is a great deal of talent which lies underutilized. And with a grant of about £1,000, it's amazing what can be started. I went to give the thousandth of these grants to one of these young people from London.
At the other end of the scale, you had a meeting with some businessmen from Boston. What did you learn from them?
Well, this is one of those extraordinary occasions when, much to my amazement, the Americans have actually learned something from us. And they've started this thing called Jobs for Youth in Boston.
But ma'am, when you go out on your engagements, launching things and lunching people and so on, it is a great responsibility. But what do you feel your role is? What is your contribution?
I feel my role is supporting my husband, whenever I can, and always being behind him, encouraging, and also, most important thing, being a mother and a wife. And that's what I try to achieve. Whether I do is another thing, but I did try.
But you are developing your own interests and your own specialization.
Yes, but that's taking time, because I don't want to dive into something without being able to follow it up. Nothing would upset me more than just being a name on a top of a piece of paper and not showing any interest at all.
You were struck first by the hospices, weren't you?
Yes.
What particularly, when you first went into one, what did you sense about it?
I'd always been led to believe that it was a possibly unhappy place, because patients went in there and not always did they come out. So it was fascination on one side and concern on the other. And certainly after I'd been around the first ward, I remember it so vividly. I was struck by the calmness coming out of the patients in their bed. And most of them will have gone by now, obviously. And it was confronting their illness. They were so brave about it and made me feel so humble.
Well, you know,
Don't let too near, you might get a shock.
I've seen enough television.
I know, there's too many of those. We know about that. Yes.
And also Dr. Bernardo's with mentally handicapped children.
You see, I've got two very healthy, strong boys, and it's not always the case with the families I'm meeting through Dr. Bernardo's, and I realise how incredibly lucky I am. And I don't know how I could cope if I had a child that was handicapped or mentally handicapped in some way. So for me, I'm going out there to meet these children, and I'm learning all the time. I'm trying to understand, trying desperately to understand how they cope.
Well, now, two questions that everybody will want to have answered. What do you say, Ma'am, when you read in the papers that you are a determined, domineering woman?
I don't always read that. People are very willing to tell me that. But I don't think I am. I'm a perfectionist with myself, but not necessarily with everybody else. And those stories arose a long time ago and have kept coming out again and again. But I don't think I am.
You feel hurt by them?
Well, obviously one does. You feel very wounded, and if it comes out, you think, oh, gosh, I don't want to go out and do my engagement this morning. Nobody wants to see me. Help, panic. But you've got to push yourself out and remember that some people hopefully won't believe everything they read about you, because there's far too much about me in the newspapers, far too much. It horrifies me when there's something more important, like what goes on in a hospice, or there's been a bomb or something. They'll put me on the front page.
But there is a natural and continuing interest in you. For example, have you actually tried to change Prince Charles in any way since you got married?
Not at all. I mean, obviously the one or two things, like maybe the odd tie or something, but nothing. Shoes. We won't go any further. But nothing dramatic.
Now, the other question is about the Prince and vegetarianism. Is that true, sir? Are you a vegetarian now?
I know I'm not a complete vegetarian, no, but I think I started to examine the things I ate slightly more carefully than I had done before, and became slightly more conscious of what I was eating, which I hadn't done. And I actually now don't eat as much meat as I used to. I eat more fish. But the point I was thinking is very important about this is that the extraordinary thing that, in a sense, one should be accused of being in any way interested in vegetarianism. Because if you only ate meat and no vegetables, nobody would complain at all, which always seems to me rather illogical. But if somebody only eats vegetables or whatever and doesn't eat meat, then all hell seems to break loose. I've never quite understood this. I think the important thing, if you are going to change your diet in any way, is to make sure that it is adequately balanced. And in order to do that, you must either get proper advice or read the proper books and so on, because if you do it wrongly, you don't get the right intake.
Are you thinking of following in his footsteps?
Yeah, it's always been my own idea. I mean, I prefer fish than I do meat. But it's, I don't think I'm going dotty.
It doesn't cause any problems in the family. The children like what they get.
No, I mean, they can eat what they like.
Of course, some people say that you're so slim, you probably don't eat enough anyway.
When we go on an engagement, if it's a lunchtime one, we often have a buffet lunch so we can get around the enormous amount of people there sometimes are. So it's impossible to talk and eat at the same time. So you end up chasing a bit of chicken around the plate and are never getting anything yourself. And by the time you get home, certainly there's no time, you're rushing off somewhere else. But I'm never on what's called a diet. Maybe I'm so scrawny, it's because I take so much exercise. Don't know.
And you keep up your swimming, do you?
Yes, I swim every day, sometimes twice a day, if I've got the time.
And do you have time to keep up your dancing? You're always interested in that.
I actually wanted to be a dancer, but I overshot the height by a long way. I couldn't imagine some man trying to lift me up above his arms, but I do it once a week, if I can, and it's a combination of tap, jazz, and ballet. And I really enjoy it enormously, and I think it's vital to switch off for 1 or 2 hours every week.
Now, do you have any sense of living in a state of rivalry with Princess Anne, as is said time and time and time again?
None at all. Princess Anne's been working incredibly hard to Save the Children Fund, and I'm her biggest fan, because what she crams into a day I could never achieve. And we've always hit it off very well, and I just think she's marvellous. And the story arose, obviously, because she wasn't chosen perhaps as a godmother for Harry, which had our child been a girl, the possibility was there. But Harry arrived, so we went to a man.
Do you think sometimes that newspapers, as is the way of life, build people up and then just as quickly knock them down?
Well, they do, but there again, it's their job, isn't it, really? I came in on the scene and I apparently could do no wrong, but it's quite interesting to see the niggly things that go on now that I apparently perhaps could be doing wrong. And I'm sure, I'm not asking to be perfect, I'm far from it, but I just like the chance and opportunity to get involved in my various areas that I've chosen without people talking about being a shopaholic or something. That's not important.
But it is true, if I may say, that, this question of building people up onto a pedestal, the moment that happens, along comes a separate brigade that, like knocking you off a pedestal. I mean, it's human nature, I suppose. So from that point of view, it's absolutely true what you say, I think, isn't it?
Well, on your pedestal, sir, there are people who say that some of your interests, say like alternative medicine, are mildly eccentric.
Yes, I think I'm becoming more eccentric as I get older, probably. Well, clearly, something like, I prefer to call it complementary medicine, can easily be considered by people who don't think that it has any relevance at all as eccentric. I can understand that. But all I am concerned about is that complementary medicine or other ways of looking at the person, in other words, looking at the person not so much as a machine, but as a whole person, in the classic, ancient sense, is very important, and I don't think we should forget this aspect. And I also feel there are certain aspects of complementary forms of medicine which can have a great deal of value and effect for certain ailments. And all I am making a plea for is a slightly more open-minded approach to this sort of thing than to just shut it off and say it doesn't exist, because there are plenty of cases, and for hundreds and hundreds of years, thousands of years, where such forms of medical treatment have worked. There's no doubt about it.
Does that extend to your interest in spiritualism, mysticism?
Well, yes, absolutely. Again, it's entirely, I think, I've been riveted by the way in which all this has developed, because I have seen articles shown to me saying that I play with Ouija boards, which I don't even know what they are. Literally, I've never seen one. I might as well say it, I might as well emphasize it, because I'm fed up with getting letters from people all the time saying, don't touch the Ouija boards. And, it's bad for your health. What I find so annoying is that it should be reduced again to this level of total absurdity. I'm not interested in the occult or dabbling in black magic or any of these kinds of things, or for that matter, strange sort of forms of mysticism. I am purely interested in being open-minded. And after all, there are so many inventions and things that have happened and been proved scientifically in the past, which everybody totally poo-pooed before they were proven.
Now, ma'am, a question of clothes and your clothes. So much attention, public attention, is focused on them, and so important to the fashion industry in this country. How much time do you have to give to your clothes?
Not as much as perhaps people think. My clothes are not my priority. I enjoy bright colours, and my husband likes to see me look smart, presentable. And I mean, fashion isn't my big thing at all. Obviously, if I'm helping the fashion industry and helping the British side of things, well, that's marvellous. But I never tried to do that. And I do think there's too much emphasis on my clothes.
But going away to Australia and the United States, that must involve quite a bit of work.
Well, it was like when we first went on tour after we got married. I mean, I'd had not the capacity of clothes. I mean, I had to buy endless new things, of course, because I just didn't have them. Because on a tour, you change 3 or 4 times a day. You can, sometimes. And obviously, I had to buy new things, and that was the problem. The arrival of all the new clothes were causing tremendous criticism. But what else could I do? I couldn't go around in a leopard skin something, I don't know. I had to produce something that was decent.
Do you take his advice?
Absolutely, but I mean, I ask him, but if this looks right or that looks right. But the chances of turning up in what he says, that's nil.
She asked me, which one do I wear? I said, why did you wear that one?
Okay, and the other one.
Something else. Why do you ask me?
Have you ever been to the United States before?
No, I've never have. No, it's great excitement there.
So what are you expecting to see? What are you looking forward to?
Well, I go with an open mind. Much the easiest.
It's full of your long-lost American cousins, isn't it?
There's quite a few of them around.
You'll meet a lot of long-lost cousins.
Yes.
And these are great occasions which you take part in, which you know other people enjoy. And yet, say, when you go abroad, you have to leave the children behind now.
Yes.
Is that a wrench?
Terrible wrench, obviously. But they must have a stable life as much as we can give. And obviously taking them around the world isn't that. But they're very well looked after here. We miss them dreadfully, but we're coming back to them, so.
And coming back is perhaps the best part of the day.
Of course it is, yeah. Very much so.
Thank you. Thank you very much. That's that. Prince William thinks that's quite enough.
Some big funny faces over there.
Why should I eat it?
And Nanny Barnes brings in Prince Harry for the picture.
Harry. Harry's standing up now. William, take Harry's other hand. William, you take Harry's other hand.
Okay, here we go. That's fine. And...
One look at you over there.
But you can't control all of the people all of the time.
Come on, Harry, go get him.
Can I go back to, maybe just Turkey, just for a moment? I think if you'd still be facing the Prince for me. That's...
I'm sure Harry had a play this morning. Can't play.
Shall we play it again, Harry?
That's lovely.
Piano.
Right, fine, thank you.
You've
And
got
now
to
we'll just
try
go
to do
back
the piano.
Okay.
Harry, what are you doing over there?
You go and get Harry. Because I can't do it. It's too heavy.
Harry, not
can see
your
Hey! So if you turn slightly towards me, I'm just trying to avoid a light in the window behind. Yes.
What's on his head?
Harry, go! He's trying to do my hand off. Harry, stop it. Ow! Harry!
Look, sit him on your shoulder.
Harry! Hey! Baba! Look!
Gotcha. Be careful, don't put it too high.
Ow! Harry!
Now look.
Don't move!
What's that with you? A bust, is it? Oh, what's that? Is that a present?
No, a car!
Knock, knock.
Under the tablecloth, someone won't stir.
Come on, let's quickly.
Now, Mother may need a little powder for her picture. Better test it first.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah?
Go sit with Mommy now. Look. Quickly. Look.
Did you know they're taking pictures out in the rain, too?
Look.
Only a little bit.
No, it's not.
Yes, look.
No, it's not.
Look.
Do you want to
Right
sit in?
Yeah.
Do you want William
Yes.
to sit here as well?
Yes, I'd like that. But what I'd quite like to do is both the young...
Would we ever be rid of the television people?
Seeing live pictures once again from Victoria, British Columbia, as the people of this city, many of them anyway, await the arrival of Charles and Diana. A couple of notes if you joined us during that interview with Charles and Diana, the Prince and Princess of Wales, was taped last fall before their trip to the United States. Fascinating 26-minute discussion with the royal couple, originally broadcast in Canada on the Journal last November. The royal couple arrived a little over a half an hour ago at Victoria International Airport. They are now on their way here to the legislative grounds in Victoria for what will be really the official welcome not only to Victoria and British Columbia, but to Canada as well for this 7-day visit to our country.
They will be going to all sorts of places in British Columbia, Peter. They're going from here in Victoria to Nanaimo, from Nanaimo to Vancouver to Open Expo, as we said before. They're also making short visits to Kamloops, Kelowna, and Prince George before returning to Vancouver. And that's the dais where many of the official ceremonies will take place. The guard that you see right in the front is part of the Princess Patricia's, and there is the Premier of British Columbia, William Bennett. And the gentleman on the right of the picture, that is Richard Rogers, the Lieutenant Governor of British Columbia.
And he becomes really the Queen's representative here on the ground, awaiting the royal couple, because as we have said earlier, Governor General Jean Sauvé is ill with pleurisy in Ottawa and is unable to make this trip. For Bill Bennett, of course, a big, big week. Not only the royal tour, but the coming of Expo 86.
Expo 86 is really the reason the Prince and Princess are here. They're going to open the Canada Pavilion Friday morning. They will open Expo itself on Friday afternoon. And then on the second last day of the tour, they'll be touring a number of the pavilions, the British, the Australian. They'll also be touring the Saudi Arabian and Japanese.
All right, as the crowd awaits the arrival of the royal couple here outside the provincial legislative buildings in Victoria, British Columbia, we are at this point 4 to 5 minutes away from their arrival by royal limousine here at the legislative buildings. Karen, you mentioned Expo 86, an opportunity for us as we await these final few moments before the royal couple's arrival here. An opportunity to take a little bit of a peek into what's going to be a fascinating official opening on Friday. Our man Larry Stout has this look at Expo 86.
The royal couple will be opening what has become the pride and joy of British Columbia, a $1.5 billion extravaganza created on a huge landfill site at False Creek, just a few blocks from Vancouver's city center. Last weekend, about 100,000 visitors, mostly friends and relatives of the Expo staff, toured the site in a sort of trial run. It rained, there was a chilling wind, and a few glitches. Delays on the monorail system and on the sky ride that travels around the site. but everyone, officials and visitors, seemed pleased.
I think the greatest show.
Yeah, I think it's going to be just super. Yeah, super gorgeous. Love it very much.
More than 3 million tourists are expected to visit Expo before the fair closes in October. They'll see exhibits on the fair's theme of transportation and communications at over 80 different attractions. 54 countries are taking part in the fair. 7 of Canada's provinces and the territories are represented. The Prince and Princess of Wales will personally tour several of the pavilions: Britain, the United States, the Soviet Union, and of course, British Columbia. Canada's pavilion is a 3-minute train ride from the main Expo site. With its 5 sails arching majestically into the sky, the Canadian Pavilion is a permanent structure, part of Canada Place, a complex that will eventually be used as a World Trade Center. The Canadian Pavilion, also to be officially opened by the royal couple, has dozens of attractions of its own, most based on the theme of Canada in Motion. Aside from its serious themes, Expo is also glitz, glitter, and a symphony of color. The most ambitious project of its kind since Expo 67 in Montreal 19 years ago. It's out to prove that Canada is more than just the land of the maple leaf and the hockey stick, although those cliches are graphically acknowledged. Expo is about Canada today, growing, dynamic, ambitious, technologically advanced, and besides all that, a heck of a lot of fun.
All right, that's Expo 86, officially due to start on Friday. But today's story is here in Victoria at the British Columbia Legislative Buildings, just a couple of minutes away from the arrival now of Charles and Diana. Before we depart the thought of Expo 86, a couple of quick reminders. On Friday, we will, of course, be covering live the official opening, first of all, of the Canada Pavilion, where Charles and Diana will be taking part in that. 10:30 Friday morning Pacific time, that's 1:30 Eastern time in the afternoon, and then back on the air again in the later that day at 2 o'clock Pacific time in the afternoon, 5 o'clock Eastern time in the afternoon for the rest of the official opening ceremonies for Expo 86. But here, we're in Victoria, waiting for the royal couple.
It looks absolutely beautiful, but we ought to remind people that it is unseasonably cold for Victoria. All those flowers have been growing there for months, but just recently they were replanting some which have been tipped by frost. The crowd, which has been out there since about 10 o'clock, is looking a little bit chilly, but they seem to be enthusiastic. They certainly seem to be patient.
Well, let's see how enthusiastic and how patient. We heard Larry Stout a moment ago giving us that report on Expo 86. Larry is with us in Victoria this afternoon. He's down there amongst the crowd somewhere. Larry?
Hello, Peter. Hello, Karen. Actually, it's quite pleasant here on the grounds of the legislature. A slightly chilly breeze off the Victoria Harbor, but if you have a sweater on, you feel just great. And these people have been here, some of them, for 4 or 5 hours, awaiting the arrival of the royal couple. Hello there. Are you excited about seeing the Prince and Princess of Wales?
Very much so, yes. I wanted my daughter to see them. I saw the Queen when she was here years ago. I think I was 5, and so I wanted her to have the same exciting feeling that I did.
How old is your daughter?
She's just 3.
She's just 3. Do you know anything about royalty? About the Prince and Princess? Well, I bet she's going to have a lot of fun. These people have been over here for several hours. Hi. Well, look at this. You've got Union Jacks. You came prepared. Are you excited about seeing the Prince and Princess in person?
Certainly am. I saw his mother, and I'm here to see him now.
How about you, ma'am? Are you...
Same exactly. We went over to England to see them, and we missed them, so we're going to try and catch them here.
How do you feel about being here in British Columbia, being a British Columbian in an upcoming expo? Is it a real proud occasion?
Oh, I think it's going to be terrific. I'm really looking forward to going over and having a look at it.
Right. She's a native British Columbian.
I'm one of the few that have been born right here on Vancouver Island, as a matter of fact.
Wonderful. Hope you have a good afternoon. Peter, everybody's quite excited here, awaiting the arrival of the Prince and Princess of Wales, and I know they're just a few seconds away, so back up to you and Karen.
All right, Larry, thanks very much. Here's the scene once again, looking out over the harbor that Larry mentioned, and of course one of the famous landmarks of this city, the Empress Hotel at the edge of the inner harbor. This is the road that runs down along between the inner harbor and the Empress Hotel, and it's the road that any moment now we will see coming up from the end up to the top right-hand part of your picture. The Royal Motorcade will turn down this street, heading towards the legislative buildings, where here the Guard of Honor, of course, is ready not only to present its arms for Prince Charles, but also to be inspected by the Prince after his arrival. A couple of points we should make about the ceremony that will take place here outside the legislative buildings. We'll have an opportunity to, once again, not only to see the royal couple, but to hear from Prince Charles. He will be making a short speech in reply to speeches given by Benoit Bouchard, the Secretary of State. Karen, as we mentioned earlier, Mr. Bouchard filling in for the Governor General, Jean Sauvé, who is sick in Ottawa. But a gorgeous day.
After the official ceremonies, there will be a short walkabout. It's down the west wing of the legislature where the crowds are, as we said earlier, 10 to 20 deep. And that will take about 15 minutes before they get in the limousine and go to Government House.
But all that just moments away now from happening. The first opportunity for the people of Victoria, including this, well, I'm going to make a guess and call him a young chap. He's in blue. It's boys wear blue, right? And girls wear pink, so that must be a young boy.
We know that the Prince and Princess must be somewhere close because something we can hear and sometimes see that the audience doesn't get a chance to see is the sound of the security helicopters above. There is always a lot of security that you will never see on the site whenever the royal family is around. Those of us who have been on royal tours before know that that helicopter signals that the Prince and the Princess are somewhere near. So they're probably within a mile, maybe a couple of miles of here.
I don't think we should underestimate either the amount of security that's gone into this trip. It's always a part of any royal tour that takes place in this country, but because of recent events overseas, the security has been even tightened up even more so surrounding the royal couple here. I remember yesterday morning I was touring the grounds here where the Charles and Diana will be walking, and a couple of the security people were telling me how there was even more security than they'd expected. They'd even gone to the trouble of greasing the flagpoles to make sure nobody shinnied up the poles for whatever purpose, including, I suppose, trying to steal the flags.
But there is a flag missing. There's one right up on the east side of the legislature. There's a flag been taken. It was there yesterday, and it's not there today.
Okay. In that picture that you're looking at right now, well, you were looking at. We'll get back to it a little later. Those are the kind of buttons that always flourish at a time like this. I love royal visits by a young lady here waiting to see. Now, here's that shot again. In the bottom left-hand corner, you'll see a statue. It's a statue of Queen Victoria. The reason I mention that, it's on the front lawn here, the legislative buildings. The cornerstone was laid in 1919 by the last Prince of Wales.
Edward VIII.
Edward VIII. And timely, of course, at this moment, Edward VIII, of course, the Duke of Windsor, after he abdicated the throne, died in 1972, but his wife, the Duchess of Windsor, was buried, of course, just yesterday, and it was the last official act in Britain by the royal couple, Charles and Diana, before they flew here to Canada today.
Edward VIII never did come to British Columbia on any kind of an official visit. The first royal visit to this province was 1939 when King George VI and Queen Elizabeth came in that what became known as the whistle stop tour because they took a train all across Canada. And there have been several since then.
It's one of the advance cars, I think, coming down the road, just checking everything to make sure things are right. The one thing they won't have to worry about is that red light at the top of your picture because they won't be stopping for any red lights today. They'll just be whisking right through.
That's one of the prime things that the security people do is they make sure that there's a clear path for them to go whenever they want to go. Whether they're walking or whether they're driving, they never have to worry about anybody going to hit them. That is Victoria Harbor, which is directly out in front of the legislature, in front of the Empress Hotel. It looks much calmer than the wind is today. That looks very placid, and it is not a placid day. It's windy and cold, as we've said before. This harbor is one of the most important on the West Coast.
We often mention the weather on broadcasts like this, and for good reason. I mean, it's for most people who come out here, they're coming to catch a glimpse. They want the weather to be okay. And while there may be a few complaints today about the coolness of the temperature and the bit of wind, I mean, Larry was standing there bragging that it wasn't so bad out there. He didn't go to the trouble of mentioning that he bought thermal underwear this morning to wear out on the front lawn. But yesterday, raining here, and had been for the last couple of days, and they were hoping at least it wouldn't rain, and it certainly hasn't.
Well, we can say this about the wind. It does make the flags look nice. Those people are on top of a building.
Wax Museum.
Wax Museum across the street from us.
We won't get into trying to guess the size of the crowd. There's for those of you who are interested, wondering where we are, we're in that little booth.
Well, that's the back of our heads they're looking at.
That's right.
The band in the front is from the Princess Patricia's, as is the Honor Guard, and they will be playing, that's the band that will be playing the Royal Anthem, plus O Canada, plus the Salute.
Now this would be the advance motorcade and the motorcycle signaling that they're not far away, and this will be the first car in the royal procession that comes by. I think it's the third car back there with the flag flying on the hood that will have the royal couple, Charles and Diana, in. At a slow pace, as they probably have been most of the way in from the airport. It's a good bet that a fair number of people chose as their opportunity to see the royal couple lining the motorcade route in from the airport.
The royal family always likes to make these journeys from place to place as slow as they can without spending too much time in a car, because they realize there are a lot of people who would like to do that and would like to see them. And if they can, they like to make it slow enough that anybody who sees them can look at them for 5 seconds before they pass by, and not sort of say, I think what I saw in blue was the Queen or the Princess of Wales.
And given that this motorcade has taken a little longer than had been expected, and they're running about 7 or 8 minutes behind schedule, an opportunity as the cars roll up to the point at which the royal couple will get out of the cars in front of the legislative buildings, a point just to remind stations, especially in the eastern part of our country, that are expecting their suppertime newscast to be coming on shortly. Obviously, we are going to be staying with coverage of the royal tour for a good half an hour, 40 minutes or so from now. But those newscasts that you were expecting will, of course, be following our special coverage of the arrival of Charles and Diana in Canada upon its conclusion here out in front of the legislative buildings in Victoria.
The events on a royal tour very rarely run late, but they may not be particularly worried about this one because this is their only official function today. For them, it's really almost midnight.
That's right.
And they're probably getting tired. They go from here to a quick media reception at Government House, and then that's it for Charles and Diana for the day. But the reception they get today will probably be enough to convince them that they are welcome in Canada. They're certainly welcome in British Columbia.
People here are pretty proud of the fact that all this whole tour that's lasting 7 days is all in BC. We've mentioned, of course, the Expo 86 involvement of this tour, but also, as you said earlier, Karen, Prince George, Kamloops, Kelowna, and Nanaimo also on the tour. Cars have arrived.
That's the household staff. There she is.
Get down, get down!
And welcoming them at the steps of the legislative buildings, Benoit Bouchard and Mrs. Bouchard, the Secretary of State, filling in for the Governor General, Jean Sauvé.
He was to have been at the airport, but is here instead. That is Robert Rogers, the Lieutenant Governor. I made a mistake earlier when I got him confused with Richard Rogers and Mrs. Rogers. And that's Bill Bennett. I was being much too formal when I talked about the Premier, because nobody in this province ever calls him William. And
yeah, they
Mrs.
call him
Bennett.
a lot of things, but mostly Bill.
But mostly Bill. Premier Bill, they call him.
And the cheer going up from the crowd have waited so patiently throughout this afternoon for the arrival of the royal couple. And now the flower presentation.
The flower girl is Alison Parker. She's 11 years old. She's a little older than most flower girls, but she was chosen to present the flowers to the Princess of Wales because last year she had an unfortunate accident. She was mauled by a cougar further north on Vancouver Island. She appears to have recovered quite well.
And that special moment which she'll cherish for the rest of her life, the opportunity of presenting flowers to the Princess of Wales.
People always ask, what do they do with the flowers afterwards? And the answer is that they keep some of them, but most of them are given away to hospitals and to children's homes, particularly children's homes with the Princess of Wales, because she's noted to have a strong interest in children.
Now, the royal couple will be heading now for the official welcoming ceremonies, meeting many of the dignitaries here and local and civic officials. At the head of the line, that was Alan McKinnon, Conservative MP for this city, former defense minister in the Joe Clark government of 1979. But a brief welcoming here before the official ceremonies that Karen mentioned, including the playing of the anthems and the inspection of the Guard of Honor, for the opportunity to move away from the official welcoming part and get into an opportunity to talk to members of the general public who are lining the route here.
You and I were talking earlier, Peter, about what she'd be wearing, because the princess is known to have very good taste in clothes and to have been responsible for an upsurge in the fashion industry in Britain. She always wears British clothes, but what we were wondering was whether she'd wear a big hat. It's either that she's decided on a small hat or somebody's told her it's very, very windy, because she seems to be dressed for the occasion.
The Prince talking now to the Commissioner of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, or actually the gentleman who's representing the Commissioner, the officer in commanding of E Division, Deputy Commissioner Thomas Venner and Mrs. Venner.
And that is the end of the official welcoming party.
Now, as they head to the podium for the ceremonies to take place there, including the inspection of the Guard of Honor.
What we can see from where we are, Peter, is that a number of people are trying to get closer to the front than I think they thought they wanted to be. There seems to be a movement in the crowd towards the steps of the Legislature where the Prince and the Princess are. And that's part of the noise you're hearing, is there are a lot of people whistling and cheering.
The Prince takes his spot on the podium. Princess takes hers. And you will now hear the officer commanding the Guard of Honor presenting the Royal Salute. Music will be played by the Canadian Forces Naden Band. God Save the Queen.
The salute that you're hearing is a 21-gun salute fired by the 5th Field Battery of British Columbia, the Royal Canadian Artillery. You actually can't see that because it's on a point across the harbor from here, but you can certainly hear it.
Yes. Now, the Prince of Wales will inspect the Guard of Honor, provided by the 3rd Battalion of the Princess Patricia's Canadian Light Infantry. The Guard Commander, Major J.M. Leperi, will be escorting the Prince to his duties of inspecting the Guard. See the tulips in the background that are in full bloom. Not many parts of the country can brag that yet.
No, actually, they planted them late, Peter, because tulips come up really early. And so they made sure that the tulips that the royal couple will see on this visit to both Victoria and Vancouver were planted late enough that they would be in full bloom at the end of April, beginning of May.
Prince stopping to talk to one of the members of the 3rd Battalion, Princess Patricia's Canadian Light Infantry. Who have been out there awaiting his arrival for some time and for this inspection. Up early this morning, polishing those shoes, making sure they all the lint off their uniforms.
They have actually been standing there for a couple of hours now. They were here when we arrived. When we first came into the broadcast booth. They must be getting near the end. Yes, you can hear the crowd cheering because they can see the Prince of Wales. The rules with these things is that you speak when you're spoken to, and if His Royal Highness stops and asks you a few questions, you are to answer, but you're not to try to speak to him unless he speaks to you first.
Now, I've often wondered when they inspect the Guard of Honor, I mean, what if he actually did see some lint on a uniform?
I don't know.
I mean,
maybe that's what he's saying to those people. We have no idea of knowing what happens, because one of the rules of covering any royal tour is that as media, we're not allowed to report on any conversations we overhear, and we're not allowed to record them. So we sometimes have no idea what's being said. Doesn't look like he's taking anybody off, though, does he?
I don't think so. Once the inspection is over, the Prince will head back to the podium for the Royal Salute once again, this time, of course, the playing of O Canada. It is after that, shortly after that, that we will hear the address of welcome by Benoit Bouchard, the Secretary of State for the federal government, filling in for the Governor General. Then an address of welcome by Premier Bennett on behalf of his government, the Social Credit government here in British Columbia. And then we will hear the reply of the Prince of Wales. And if you're wondering, no, we will not be hearing Diana. She does not make speeches.
Actually, it is rare to hear the royal family speak at all. The Queen prefers not to speak on occasions like this. She speaks at state dinners and at dinners given in her honor on royal tours. But she did speak the last time in Ottawa, but generally she prefers not to have to say anything. Perhaps we're seeing a different future king. Perhaps he's going to make his views known more often than the present Queen has.
Charles arriving back on the podium now after finding everything in order. Once again, the Royal Salute, this time O Canada. That completes the inspection of the Guard of Honor and the Royal Salutes, and now it will be the opportunity for the official welcome to British Columbia and to Canada by, as we said, the Secretary of State, Benoit Bouchard, the Premier of British Columbia, William Bennett, and then Prince Charles. Here, Secretary of State, Mr. Bouchard.
Distinguished West, ladies and gentlemen, the Governor General of Canada, the Right Honorable Jan Sauvé, has asked me to express to you, Your Royal Highnesses, and to the people of Canada, her deep regrets that she cannot be here today on an occasion of such great significance in the Canadian history. On behalf of all Canadians, I'm delighted to welcome Your Royal Highnesses once more to Canada. Your presence here in the province of British Columbia brings with it a touch of royal charm to the events which will unfold in the forthcoming days, and I believe I echo the sentiments of all Canadians when I say to you how very much we have looked forward to this moment of greeting. I wish to offer a special word of welcome to the Princess of Wales. It is the first time that the West Coast has been graced by your presence, and has, with each inaugural visit, there is a certain sense of privilege and joy shared by those who will have the honor to receive you on this special occasion. I'm certain that this part of Canada will enchant you as it has your many royal predecessors, and that the warm and sincerity with which you will be received by the people of this province will create for you a lasting impression of a diverse land. Les merveilles de l'Expo nous attendent. Encore quelques jours et le monde aura l'occasion de découvrir une exposition qui, j'en suis convaincu, est l'un des plus grands exploits technologiques et culturels jamais entrepris. C'est une occasion de célébrer le progrès de l'humanité et les conquêtes accomplies par la civilisation qui a triomphé de multiples obstacles de la nature et de géographie qui, pendant des siècles, ont isolé les peuples. Cela permet de mettre en évidence l'évolution des moyens de transport et la technologie des communications et de dégager les jalons des découvertes scientifiques qui ont enregistré d'immenses progrès et qui, sans aucun doute, nous permettront de nous engager avec une ferveur égale sur le chemin de l'avenir. Cela nous rappelle, d'autre part, que même si nous sommes à ce point aidés et fascinés par la technologie, il ne faut pas oublier que c'est le génie de l'homme qui l'a inventé. Expo is more than anything a celebration of that spirit of genius and innovation, a glowing testimony to the diverse cultural, humanitarian and artistic endeavors which have inspired invention since the beginning of time, and an affirmation of the positive and peaceful utility of technological creativity and progress. I can think of no two people who more closely symbolize this promise of the future than you, Royal Highnesses. We welcome you as citizens of the world who, I believe, seek to understand and identify with the passions of all nations, that you might better use your knowledge and influence towards the creation of a more harmonious and unified world. Vos aspirations légitimes sont trouvées accrues par votre désir de parcourir le monde et de rencontrer des peuples d'origines les plus diverses. Et c'est l'esprit même de cette entreprise que nous célébrons aujourd'hui. Your Royal Highnesses, I am certain in the days that follow, you will be touched by the admiration of the people of Canada. We have been inspired and encouraged by your warmth of spirit and the gift of your presence here. It is my hope that the days that follow will be filled with discovery and celebration, and will create for you fond and lasting memories of this country and this province.
Your Royal Highnesses, Secretary of State, Your Honor, and fellow British Columbians, I'm delighted to welcome so many British Columbians to the legislative precincts in our provincial capital today, and millions more across Canada who are watching on television. On your behalf, and on behalf of all our people, it is my pleasure to extend warmest greetings to our very special guests, Your Royal Highnesses, the Prince and Princess of Wales. A little more than 3 years ago, Her Majesty the Queen began a 3-day visit to our province. During that memorable visit, Her Majesty invited the nations of the world to come to British Columbia this year to help us celebrate Expo 86. We are honored and delighted that among the first to accept Her Majesty's invitation are their Royal Highnesses. Having visited our province many times through your deep involvement with the Lester B. Pearson College of the Pacific, your Royal Highness is aware of the affection of all British Columbians for the royal family. This, however, is the first opportunity we have had to welcome Her Royal Highness, the Princess of Wales, and to show her our respect and very real affection. Your Royal Highnesses, during these 8 days you will see much of this province and meet a great many British Columbians. You will see a magnificent province, a ruggedly beautiful coastline, tremendous resources, human and natural, careful and imaginative inner-city development, great cultural variety, and of course a first-class world exposition. Most important of all, you will meet our people, who are working together to harness this potential in order to create a better society. This is an exciting year for British Columbians, not simply because we are hosting a World's Fair, but because of what that signifies. A broadening of our economic and cultural horizon, a leap forward. Your Royal Highnesses, your presence in our province enhances and adds a special dimension to the sense of celebration and excitement that is sweeping our province. For that, we are grateful indeed. I know all British Columbians join me in welcoming you to Canada's Pacific province, and in the next few days as you visit Expo 86 and the different regions of this magnificent province, you will be meet and be greeted by thousands of British Columbians for whom you serve as a link between the traditions of the past and the promise of the future. Ladies and gentlemen, His Royal Highness, Prince of Wales.
Secretary of State, Premier, ladies and gentlemen, I can only say that it is a very great pleasure, as far as I'm concerned, to be back in Canada again, and indeed back in British Columbia. But it's a particular pleasure to be able to introduce my wife to this great Pacific province and to let her see for herself and to find out for herself just what a warm-hearted lot you all are. The last time we were in Canada was in 1983 when we visited the maritime provinces, and that was a great experience for both of us. And now, of course, for my wife's first visit here, she's been looking forward to it enormously. We were both very sorry indeed to hear that the Governor-General was not well and was therefore unable to be here today, and we both hope very much that she will soon be on the road to recovery. However, I'm delighted, both of us are, to find the Lieutenant Governor and the Premier seem to be in excellent health here. Having, ladies and gentlemen, flown for 10 hours with an 8-hour time change in order to reach Victoria, I'm undecided about our own state of health. Now, my family has had a long connection with British Columbia, and it goes right back to the very choice of the name for this province, on which the Prince Consort, my great-great-great-grandfather, advised Queen Victoria in 1858 when British Columbia became a crown colony. and certainly the British bit is very much in evidence today. A typical April day. Mr. Secretary of State, Mr. Premier, we were both very touched indeed to receive the invitation to join you all in opening, in helping to open the ceremonies to do with Expo 86, and we do very much look forward to seeing the results of all the hard work and planning which I know has gone into this particular exposition. And I do hope, more than anything else, that it helps to generate great benefits for British Columbia as a whole. So both of us are looking forward very much to seeing something of British Columbia during our short visit, and above all, to meeting as many of you, the inhabitants and citizens of this province, as possible. So thank you very much indeed for such a warm and friendly welcome. Thank you.
One of these guest books is the Government of Canada Golden Book. The other one is Visitor's Book, and each of them will be signing both. I think it's obvious that the crowd is a little more interested in the Princess of Wales than in the Prince, because in his speech, when he mentioned that he was
derrière lui, très bien.
Manitoba. There was concern at the time that something might have happened to the Queen, but afterwards it was explained to us that there's absolutely nothing they can do, and so they simply don't worry about it.
All right, I should mention at this point, we understand that in parts of the country in the past few minutes there have been audio problems with our coverage here. We apologize for those of you who have been unable to hear us for the past few moments. But obviously, what I'm sure is most important to you, you are getting the pictures of Charles and Diana as they begin the walkabout part of this first public appearance in Canada on this 7-day visit. The speech is over now, the opportunity, especially for those who are lining the walkabout route, to actually get up a good close-up look at the royal couple, and if they're very lucky, an opportunity to say a few words.
Charles's mother, the present queen, was the queen who started what is known as the walkabout. It gave them a little bit of worry at first because they naturally worried about her security, but it's a tradition that he and the Princess of Wales have maintained, and it's become expected now that at every time they go out, they will spend at least some time talking to the people who have come out to see them.
Sort of royal protocol here. There's one thing you'll never see the Queen do, and that's shake hands.
No, that's true.
But obviously it's something that doesn't bother the Princess of Wales, who is not only shaking hands, but accepting small gifts of flowers, like this yellow one she's carrying now, from people in the crowd here.
Directly behind her, just over her left shoulder, is one of her ladies-in-waiting who, as Diana receives flowers from the audience, she carries them until she has a comfortable handful, and then she turns around and passes them to her lady-in-waiting. So what you have at the end of a walkabout is a princess with one bouquet of flowers and a lady-in-waiting with an entire armful.
For those people who missed our commentary a few moments ago, if you're wondering what those books were that were being signed just after the speeches, the Prince and Princess both signing the Government of Canada Golden Book and the British Columbia Distinguished Visitors Book. But those sort of official duties well over now, and this, the much more human side of any visit, the opportunity for those in the crowd, many, as you can see, that are lining the route, some elderly and some disabled, who've had the opportunity to be brought up close.
There are probably some in that crowd who have seen official visits starting from 1939 back. The crowd has generally moved over to that area as the Prince and Princess have done the walkabout, so that right now, for instance, surrounding our broadcast booth, there's probably a couple of thousand people who've all come over to the west side of the legislature because the official ceremonies at the front of the legislature have finished.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to try and guess the size of the crowd, but we're talking at least somewhere in between 5,000 and 10,000 people, I think, roughly in there. A good-sized crowd for a cool day like this, but this is what they came for. I'm sure most of them, if you actually went out and did a poll, who did they really want to see? It's Diana, the Princess of Wales, and so many of them now getting that opportunity. All three speeches mentioning the first opportunity, of course, for the Princess to visit the West Coast. Not the first time in the West, though. Alberta entertained the royal couple just 3 years ago. In fact, it was in Alberta, I think, that the Princess spent her birthday, wasn't it?
Yeah,
July
it
1st,
was
83.
her 22nd birthday or 21st, I forget which, and I'm going to be very ashamed of myself for not having remembered that. But more importantly, actually, they missed the first birthday of Prince William.
That's right.
They left Prince William in England, as they do almost all the time, and he turned one on June 21st, 1983, while they were in Canada.
And of course, these are the moments that are a security person's nightmare, of course, because it looks like everybody is just able to move in and in a crush. One thing we can tell you about this shot, of course, sometimes the camera lies a little bit. There really is a fairly huge gap in between the crowd and the royal couple. There is a walkway through there, and they can pick and choose which side of the walkway they go to.
There's a tremendous desire on the part of almost everybody to get a picture of their own, of the Prince and Princess, or of any member of the royal family. There's always pictures that you can get of the royal family, but for some reason, the one that you take yourself is the one everybody remembers.
That's right. A lot of family albums around this country with pictures of royalty in it from past visits, including yours, including mine. In fact, I've got my camera here, and I'll hopefully take a snap when she passes by our booth. Down, you heard him earlier. Larry Stout is down in that crowd with an opportunity to talk to some of the people who are hoping to see the royal couple as they pass by. Larry?
Legislature Peter, I'm just at the far edge of the legislature. As a matter of fact, on the driveway, you can just see up the driveway as the royal couple come down here. You were saying earlier that most of these people really want to see Diana more than they do Prince Charles, and I'm sure Prince Charles would agree with them. This woman is from the United States. Did you know that the royal couple were going to be here in Victoria?
No, we had no idea. We're just fascinated about it.
How long have you been waiting to see them?
Since about 11:30 this morning.
Who would you rather see, Prince Charles or the Princess of Wales?
The Princess of Wales, to be honest. That's why we're here.
Why are you so fascinated by royalty?
Just the whole concept of royalty is absolutely fascinating. I'm sorry we don't have it down in the United States anymore.
Okay, thank you very much. How about some other people here? Well...
Well, that's an interesting comment from one of our American visitors today. I'm not sure how well that'd go over on a nationwide basis down there, that they're upset about losing the royal family, but they nevertheless always provide a welcome spot for the royal family to visit. And of course, it was just last fall that Charles and Diana were in Washington, and the crowds were going wild there over the royal couple's appearance.
That happened with the Queen as well. She did a royal tour up the west coast of the United States a few years ago, and the crowds in California were more anxious to catch a glimpse of her than even the crowds in Canada. And it's been explained by some that they don't have royalty and they rarely get a chance to see royalty, and that it's a real live princess is not something that the Americans get to see very often. We might add that as the Princess of Wales is something that can only be given to someone who marries a Prince of Wales. There is no Princess of Wales who's the daughter of a monarch, for instance.
Always is difficult, the decision, I'm sure, for both the prince and the princess to decide which side of the pathway they go to, because obviously half are going to lose out on this opportunity. The gentleman in the background, obviously Premier Bennett in the middle of the picture, we'll just hand over a little bit, but there he is on the sort of the right beside Premier Bennett in the dark suit. There's Vic Chapman. He is the press secretary to Charles and Diana, and I mention that because of the interesting Canadian connection. Chapman is a Canadian, was in fact a former press secretary to Prime Minister Trudeau in the early 1970s, but is the man responsible for the media entourage that follows the royal couple and many of the stringent rules that are laid down to ensure that a visit like this can be successful from all sides of the coin.
This walkabout was scheduled to take about 15 minutes, which it seems that the prince and the princess are going to stick to. There she is. She's got an armload. She's shaking hands, and that really is rare, Peter, as you mentioned, because the royal family does not shake hands, but obviously people are very interested to see her. She has an armful of flowers.
Certainly does.
And she's getting more.
I'll mention at this point, too, we're halfway through the walkabout, roughly, given the distances involved, and to many stations across the network who would have been expecting our coverage to be ending momentarily, go to their supper time newscast. We will extend our coverage until the royal couple have completed this walkabout and are in their royal limousine heading away from their one and only public appearance today here in Victoria, British Columbia. So just a short advisory for you there.
Back to us, and they're trying to sort of split the attention between them so that everybody gets at least a good look at the prince and princess.
It's the first opportunity on this 7-day visit to British Columbia for the people of this province to catch a glimpse of the royal couple. As we mentioned earlier, Victoria just one stop of many. Nanaimo, Kelowna, Prince George, and Kamloops. I guess the big visit, obviously, is the one to Vancouver for the opening of Expo 86, where both the princess and prince will be on Friday.
They'll not only be at Expo on Friday, Peter, they're also taking a tour of Expo on the second last day of their tour. They'll be visiting a number of the pavilions there. They're going to the British Pavilion normally. They'll also be going to the American Pavilion, to the Soviet Pavilion, to the Canada Pavilion, of course. What Expo is trying to do is show off to the prince and princess their biggest pavilions and the ones they think are what make this fair unique, because this will be the first exposition, the first World's Fair, where the Soviet Union, China, and the United States will all be on one site. And there's the princess shaking hands, and she has,
she's coming right by us now, so this is my opportunity to get my picture here. just...
And she's crossing the side to the other side. Every time you hear a cheer is when she crosses sides. I figured that out. Every once in a while, we'd hear the crowd yell, and it meant that she had walked from one side of the road to the other side to talk to somebody different.
All right, Allison Smith is in that area right now. Let's go down and see what Allison's got for us. Allison?
Peter, I know a lot of the excitement is about the Princess of Wales, but of course the Prince just walked by here and stopped very briefly and spoke to this lady. What did he say?
He said hello to myself and another person from Glendale, and the little girl over here passed him some flowers, and he said, I will give them to my wife. I'm sure that they're for her.
Have you ever seen him before?
No.
And what do you think of all this?
I think it's really exciting.
Does he look like a prince, do you think, to you?
Sure. I guess I never gave that a lot of thought.
Thanks.
I don't have an image of a prince in my mind, I don't think, but it was wonderful.
Thanks very much. Peter?
All right, Allison, what we're seeing now, the princess over on her side. A moment earlier, we saw the prince joking with reporters here, many journalists, of course, not only from Canada, but around the world, covering not only this visit, but the opening in a couple of days of Expo 86. This just about completes the walkabout area as the Prince and Princess now escorted once again to the limousines, to the cheering of the crowd here. For everyone here that got that personal close-up opportunity, there are literally hundreds of others who didn't. Princess breaking away from the actual route that had been planned and getting over there now to see some of the other people who crowded into this area for the final moments of this only public appearance today by the royal couple. You know, as you said, Karen, for the royal couple, it's well after midnight, but they both seem to be handling all this very well and looking extremely relaxed for this first stop.
And I was noticing that neither of them looks to be very cold, and certainly we're getting a little chilly, and but there is a stiff wind blowing. They're right by the harbor now, less than 100 feet from the harbor, which is where the cold wind is coming from. Although it's doubtful they're feeling any of it now that I think of it, because of this huge, there is quite a few people between them and the harbor.
Well, they've both gone well beyond where they were expected to go, and this isn't totally unexpected, I don't think. I'm sure for the security people it's always a problem, but as we've seen in past royal visits, when the royal couple, whether it's Charles and Diana or in fact Queen and the Duke of Edinburgh, when there is a big crowd and they have come a long way and waited in sometimes inclement conditions, they are usually rewarded as best they can.
Well, Charles has said that his job really is to represent Britain and also to be there for the people. And he's very aware that this is what is called a constitutional monarchy, that they're figureheads, but that they're there because the people want them there. The actual popularity of the royal family has increased lately because of, probably because of the Princess of Wales.
Let's go back into the crowd once again. Allison Smith. Allison?
Ma'am, you've been moved to tears. What moves you to tears about all of this?
Well, I guess just the thrill of really meeting her and seeing her. We're from Oregon, and so, I mean, we're Americans, and we get so moved by your future queen. So, Mary is the big royalist here, so, you know, for 5 years I've been waiting to meet her, and it's kind of thrilling. She's out of school, and so it's taken us 2 days to get here.
I'm glad you got your chance. Thanks very much. Peter?
Bye, Dad.
All right, well, it's good to see so many of our southern neighbors are up here today to enjoy this royal visit.
It's actually getting quite noisy. One of the things we can hear from where we are is we can hear different people in the crowds every once in a while going, I saw her, I saw her. And I actually heard one say, I touched her.
Well, we've lost touch with the prince. He must be over on the other side of this area. This is very much impromptu, this part of the walkabout. And you can tell the thanks of the crowd. There's Prince Charles now, thanking the federal cabinet minister, the Secretary of State, Benoit Bouchard, is representing the Governor General today, and Premier Bennett. as we mentioned a number of times, this was the only public appearance today. The Prince and Princess will now be taken by their limousine to the Lieutenant Governor's residence where they will be staying the night. There are a couple of brief private moments scheduled for later this afternoon, but this was the only public one. And for the thousands who gathered here today, you can hear their sound of approval and thanks for the opportunity to see the royal couple.
The people on the island will have another chance to see the Prince and Princess tomorrow. They go to Nanaimo tomorrow before they go to Vancouver to begin some of the official ceremonies dealing with Expo 86.
And that's the end of the actual event here outside the legislative grounds in Victoria, British Columbia, as the royal motorcade now heads, as we said, to the Lieutenant Governor's residence, the completion, and a very successful completion of this first public appearance by the royal couple here on this 7-day visit to Canada. There had been a lot of concern about the weather, as there often is on events like this, but the weather delivered, at least it did this afternoon. Now the next cause of concern, of course, many of the stops along the 7-day visit, but the big one is Friday, the official opening of Expo 86 over in Vancouver. The forecast is not good. We won't bore you with the forecast details right now for Friday, but they're not good.
I understand you're going to be there at Expo when the Prince and Princess open Canada Pavilion at 10:30 Friday morning.
Yeah, we should remind our viewers right now of those broadcast times for Friday when our coverage continues, not only of the royal visit, but the official opening of Expo 86. Bill Good and I will be covering the official opening starting 10:30 in the morning Pacific time. That's 1:30 in the afternoon Eastern time for the opening of the Canada Pavilion at Expo 86. Then the big ceremonies that start in the afternoon at 2 o'clock Pacific time. That's 5 o'clock in the afternoon Eastern time for the official opening of Expo 86. Karen Webb, our national reporter here in British Columbia, thank you for joining us today for these opening ceremonies of the royal visit to Canada. It was a pleasure and a treat. I'm sure we all enjoyed it. Our continuing coverage then on Friday, but also the National will be broadcast live from the Expo 86 site beginning tomorrow night. That's the National with Knowlton Nash. For Karen Webb, I'm Peter Mansbridge. Good afternoon from Victoria, British Columbia.